Hello, everyone. I hope you guys are doing well. I am Mambo Soleil. Yeah, I'm jumping right into it, no dilly dallying like I normally do, but I am Mambo Soleil. I am the founder of the Charm School Mentorship Program. I'm the coven mother of Vision of Dawn Tour. Um, and I'm a dope bitch straight up out of Oakland. I'm here tonight with my goddaughter, and in honor of I forget the name of the month, so I'm gonna let you remind people. But October is a really important month in terms of maternal healing, and so with Hunzi Pradasi being a doula, a therapist, and somebody who just has a lot of knowledge and background about this, we decided it was really important for her to be able to come on here and share some strategies that she's familiar with around maternal grief and healing. So, not a whole lot of talking from me today. I'm just going to go ahead and pass it right over to her. Same rules as always apply on my channel. Don't just come in here and be a looky loo. Make sure you are asking questions and participating in the chat. Be respectful because this is a free class that's being given to you completely free of charge. Her Cash App is below in case you want to show your appreciation through a love offering, but pay with your respect. Pay with your attentiveness. That's the main thing we look for here. And you can say hi to me by putting scale emojis in the comments. And if you want to show your love and appreciation for Hunzi Ferdasi, make sure you put the pink flower emoji or the rose, either one, in the comments section as well. All right. Ferdasi, I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to you. I'm gonna mute myself so I don't accidentally interrupt you. But I'm here if you need me to tag in at any point. Okay.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. I am Hunzi Ferdasi, goddaughter of Mambo Soleil, member of Vision of Dawn Tour. So it is October. It's Infant Loss and Miscarriage Awareness Month. So we wanted to go ahead and talk about restoring the womb, our spiritual healing for maternal grief. So the first thing I want to talk about is what is maternal grief. And that is a set of deep and complex emotions that is felt due to the loss or unfulfilled experience of motherhood. So there are various ways that a woman or a person who gives birth can feel grief. And so those can be miscarriage, stillbirth, infant loss, abortion or termination, birthing traumas, even having children diagnosed with special needs or congenital disorders can lead to a form of maternal grief and infertility. So this grief may involve the loss of the journey of motherhood, right? So if you're someone who struggles with infertility, then that journey of becoming a mother may be an area where you experience grief. The hope for future children is another area, or hope that you had for your children's future. So, for example, if you're a mother who has experienced a child diagnosed with special needs, long-term disabilities, disorders, then the hope that you had and what that may have looked like could be an area of grief for you, or just your identity in general tied to being a mother. If you thought you were going to be a working mother, if you thought you were going to be a stay-at-home mother, whatever identity held is an area where you can experience grief. And then there are several factors that can intensify maternal grief. These factors can make it more challenging to process the grief, or it could exacerbate the issue, which, it can create a deeper sense of loss, isolation, or emotional turmoil. So, one of those factors is the social stigma and the silence. So, a lot of the times, the topics like miscarriage, infertility, abortion, they're not widely discussed. And so, those can lead to feelings of isolation or shame, right? So you also may experience judgment. Mothers may face judgment for their reproductive choices in terms of abortion and termination, or for their inability to conceive or carry a child to term. um, the minimization of loss you may experience, right? Others may diminish the significance of early pregnancy loss, especially if you have a miscarriage early in those first 12 weeks. People think that because you haven't carried it that long, there's not that big of an attachment, right? So they minimize what your experience in loss. It can invalidate your grief. Um, Other factors include cultural expectations. So there's a pressure in some cultures to become a mother. Societies that emphasize motherhood as central to a woman's identity can increase the grief that she experiences. The expectations around grieving. So if society dictates how long or in what way someone is supposed to grieve, can add pressure. So this causes for women who are grieving too long to feel ashamed that they're grieving too long, or they're not grieving enough. If they're experiencing numbness, then there may be a sense of shame around, I'm not grieving the way people think I should be grieving. You may feel loneliness or isolation. Um, that could look like you don't have a strong support system, either because people don't understand your grief or because they don't know how to support you. And I think for me, after losing my child, I experienced this because it was as if nobody knew how I was feeling. No one knew what to say to me. No one knew how to support me. So they just left me alone. And so then I'm alone by myself, grieving in that way. Um, your partner may feel different or grieve differently, or sometimes early on in pregnancy, the partner may not experience grief. Um, so the difference in how partners grieve can lead to a further feeling of isolation, especially if they're not feeling the grief. And that's another area that I experienced because he wasn't connected to the baby in any way. And so when I broke down in tears, he just didn't understand it. He didn't want to talk about it, just left it completely alone. So that's another area that could exasperate your grieving process. Um, Unresolved or complicated grief. If you experience recurrent loss, so you're someone who has experienced multiple miscarriages, multiple stillbirths, or you have gone through cycles and cycles of infertility or fertility treatment, all of that can compound your grief. And each loss it like reopens the wound of the previous loss. Historical or generational grief is another one that may um, cause an exasperation of how you're feeling. You may carry generational trauma or ancestral trauma related to your reproductive loss, particularly within the American community, where reproductive harm and loss has been systemic. That is something else that may exasperate the feelings of loss and grief. Um, Medical complications and trauma, traumatic birth experiences, emergency medical interventions, trauma from being induced, or other severe complications can heighten the experience of grief. And then infertility treatments, like I was saying previously, the emotional and physical toll of fertility treatments, coupled with failures, can lead to feelings of despair, helplessness, and intensify that grief. And then the unrealized dreams and future plans, the loss of identity, um, to your purpose or to your imagined future in life. You may experience a disruption in your life plans. So you may feel devastated when dreams don't materialize, and this will add a layer to your grieving process. A lot of these exasperated factors that exasperate grief can lead to the repression of maternal grief. And this is why it's so important for us to talk about this, and why I wanted to talk about this. Because, for example, for myself, I didn't realize that I had a lot of birthing traumas and that I had a lot of grief surrounding who I am as a woman, as a mother. And so repression can occur when a woman consciously or unconsciously suppresses her emotions and experiences. Um, the unacknowledged sorrow may manifest in ways that affect emotional, physical, and psychological well-being. A woman may repress her emotions due to societal pressures, as we discussed before. It may be a self-protection method, right? Because the emotions and the experiences are so overwhelming, it may help to ignore them for a time being, or minimize what you're feeling, causing you to experience numbness. And this may help you further avoid pain. Um, you may experience repress your grief because of the fear of burdening others. If you're already feeling isolated, or you're already dealing with people who don't know how to support you, then you may not share about your grief as often. And this could be seen, you may see yourself as a burden, especially to your partner, if they are ignoring the grief around it as well. Um, you may feel like your friends or family are uncomfortable with the subject, so you just don't discuss it. You may feel like, I have to get over this. And so you bury that deep inside of you. Um, and with compound traumas, it may be easier to suppress the grief because you don't want to go through all those layers and all of that reopen wounds again, right? So, how do we identify um, maternal grief, especially if it has been repressed? You could have unexplained sadness or irritability, like persistent feelings of sadness, mood swings, or irritability without fully understanding the cause. The emotions may seem disconnected from any specific event, or it may come back around when you're experiencing anniversary grief. And I believe Mambo talked about that previously in a class on grief that she did. Around that time period, you start feeling sad out of nowhere and you don't really understand why. Um, you may have crying spells, which are like intense times when you're just crying, even over like a small or unrelated thing. Um, Anger, you may experience a lot of anger. You're easily frustrated, lashing out at others, and there's no real reason why. Another sign is numbness or detachment. So you may become emotionally numb, feeling disconnected from yourself or from your relationships. This can manifest as the lack of joy, apathy, a disinterest in life. Women may find it difficult to enjoy activities or relationships that once brought them happiness. Um, and you may have a difficulty in expressing your needs. You may struggle to ask for support or articulate your feelings that leads to any misunderstandings or emotional distance. Um, you may experience anxiety or restlessness. Um, that's unease, worry, or restlessness. This anxiety may not be directly tied to your loss, but it can be the expression of unprocessed emotions. Um, in one of my classes on releasing grief, I talked about how emotions are energy. they're energy and motion. So when we suppress our emotions, they don't disappear. They become stored or trapped within the body, and this can surface out of you as anxiety. We discuss other ways how trapped emotions can cause issues, but that is one. It can just come out of you as anxiety because it's energy. You may experience depression, um, and that may develop as persistent low moods, hopelessness, fatigue, and lack of motivation. Some physical symptoms that you might experience is chronic fatigue or exhaustion. Suppressed emotions take an immense amount of energy to hold back. Unexplained aches and pains, like headaches, stomach aches, or back pain, are all related to the weight of unresolved grief. You may, especially in the for grief that is around your womb, you may experience pelvic pain or tightness, the chronic tension or discomfort in the pelvic area. This is without any type of medical reason, um, or and it's caused by emotional trauma stored in the room. So one thing I remember talking about is how when I know it's time for me to do some womb healing is when I get really, really tight in my pelvic area. And it was only like within the last year that I realized that that was centered around a lot of unresolved grief. Especially it came around at specific times during the year. And I was like, okay, that is a part of that. Lower back pain is another physical symptom. That's the discomfort in your lower back, which our lower back is energetically connected to our reproductive organs or our sacral chakra. So that's why you may experience that lower back pain due to that. Your weight may fluctuate due to either eating too much or not eating at all. Um, if we're comfort eaters or if we're so overwhelmed that we just stop eating, forget to eat, that is how you can experience that. Sleep disturbances. So if you're having trouble falling asleep, staying asleep, or excessive sleeping as a way to avoid the emotional pain. You may experience irregular menstrual cycles. Suppressed emotions can disrupt our hormonal balance, leading to irregular, painful, or heavy menstrual periods. So that can also lead to other reproductive issues, further infertility, ovarian cysts, fibroids, endometriosis. All of those disorders have linked to emotional pain, emotional trauma that we have suppressed. You may experience some sexual dysfunction, like decreased libido, pain during intercourse, or just an aversion to being intimate sexually. And then we go on to any behavioral signs that can include hyperproductivity. So some women cope by keeping themselves extremely busy. The constant activity can be a way to distract themselves from processing grief. So someone, for example, for me, when I experienced my miscarriage, after I decided I had to be over it, I threw myself into working. I worked long hours, I worked hard, I gave myself to my clients because I felt like I needed to care for somebody. And if I'm caring, then, it will help me feel better. That's what I'm passionate about, right? You may have difficulty bonding with future pregnancies or children. So, repressed grief can interfere with a woman's ability to fully bond with their future children as the unprocessed loss of a previous child lingers. Um, you may avoid situations like pregnant women or babies. You may not, if you're invited to a baby shower, you may not attend, um, because you need to avoid that situation to further ignore the pain you're feeling. You may withdraw due to the feeling of being isolated or not being able to connect emotionally. We may withdraw from people that we're close to, um, and our ability to connect with others is a part of our sacral chakra. That emotional connection is found there. You may experience the inability to stop thinking about your loss. These thoughts can dominate the mind, leading to feelings of helplessness or despair. Or you may feel like you have to control everything. So there's a heightened perfectionism that you're experiencing or over control. And that can stem from the need to manage emotions by creating a sense of external order. Um, and then there's also the possibility of increased substance use. So women may turn to alcohol, drugs, or other substances to numb the emotional pain. So, when dealing with grief, the first thing that we need to do to release it is to acknowledge our grief. The first step to healing is acknowledgement. This process involves recognizing and validating the existence of one's pain, um, and the emotions associated with it. Acknowledgement allows you to confront the reality of your experiences rather than suppressing or denying them. So, when we acknowledge our pain, we validate our experience, we break the cycle of repression. It empowers us because our feelings are important, our feelings matter. It opens the door to expression. So, once you really recognize what you're feeling, that you're hurting, you're able to identify areas where you're needing support, so you're more likely to express your feelings and find healthier ways to cope with it. Um, and it helps facilitate support. So this allows you to again communicate your needs. It fosters connection and encourages you to get support from friends, family, or a therapist to seek out support groups, right? So um, you can further aid in your healing journey. Um, some holistic approaches to healing include therapeutic support, so grief counseling from a life coach, or depending on the severity of your grief, you may need to start with a licensed therapist. Therapy can provide a safe space for women to explore their emotions and work through any unresolved grief. Speaking openly about your loss allows for emotional release. Expressing the weight of the sadness can be a way to externalize the grief. Um, Joining support groups or other support networks in the community where other women have experienced what you are experiencing, and feeling that similar loss can reduce feelings of isolation, and further offer any validation you're needing for your grief. You can also journal and creative expression. So, writing, painting, or other forms of creative expression can help externalize and process grief that has been repressed. You're able to explore your feelings and gain clarity. So, journaling over time can help people process their emotions by reflecting on how they feel on different days. Or other forms of creative expression allow you to explore feelings you are unable to articulate into words. So, like for example, I I am an Aquarius moon, so it's very hard for me to understand what I'm feeling because I'm trying to be so cerebral about it and figure out how to fix it. So one thing I did once was just I painted, and in painting what I was feeling helped me externalize it enough for me to mentally process what I was feeling. Um, I'm just reading the question. What are ways to prepare to try again and not carry the fear of another loss?
I'm
So
gonna
these,
track the questions so you can finish, and then we'll do
okay,
Q&A at the end.
sounds good. Okay, thank you. Um, so another way is allowing yourself to cry, right? Like I went through 2 years of not being able to cry. Crying is a powerful form of emotional release. Tears are a natural way for the body to express sorrow, and holding back tears can lead to suppressed emotions. So, if you think about the healing nature of water, um, and all of those correspondences of water, crying is a way to release, to feel renewed, to let those things flow. um, and somatic movement, practices like yoga or acupuncture, massage, and dancing can help release grief stored in the body and promote physical and emotional balance. And I want to talk a little bit more about dancing, because we talk about yoga a lot, or we talk about massage and other somatic body movements. But dancing, especially within our community, is a form of expression, connection, and healing. It helps you move from one state of being to another, symbolically. So, dancing helps you connect to your ancestors. This connection can provide comfort and facilitate emotional release. In African traditional religions, dancing is often an integral part of rituals. So there's a lot of rituals we're surrounding death, mourning, and remembrance. And dancing can invoke the spirits, and you can ask them for healing and support once you're feeling their presence near you. Um, the physical act of dancing can help release stored emotions in the body, particularly the womb or the heart, where grief is stored. And this somatic release can be a um, cathartic experience and allow deep emotional expression. If you're listening to like the drumming music, the rhythmic nature of drums and instruments used in African music or other Afrocentral cultures often resonates deeply within our body. It can evoke memories, feelings, and energy, facilitating a deeper connection to the process of grieving. Um, Another holistic way to help us with grief is through breath work. Conscious breathing techniques can help release deep emotional pain. Guided breath work sessions focus on releasing stored emotions by activating the body's natural healing mechanisms through breath control, mindfulness, and being present. Um, with your emotions without judgment. So we're sitting with our emotions without feeling the shame and the guilt and um, pushing them away, just being with them. Um, this helps too if you're connecting with nature. It helps you feel grounded and connected to something larger than yourself. Um, and then revisiting the grief over time, reoccurrent healing, because grieving is not a linear process. The need to release may reoccur at different times of your life. So, like we were talking about the anniversary grief, those feelings may still come up, and revisiting the grief is a healthy part of healing. And each time may bring you new insights and a deeper level of release. And then during that time, providing yourself with some self compassion. So, treating yourself with kindness during the grieving process and understanding that it takes time to heal is important. There's no time frame on healing, there's no pressure to get through it fast enough. So, self compassion can prevent those feelings of guilt and shame that are blocking you from releasing your emotions. Um, Energetic healing is another way to heal yourself and prepare yourself for the future moving over. Practices like Reiki and other forms of energy healing can help remove emotional blockages and bring balance to the body's energy system. These practices focus on clearing emotional stagnation and facilitating spiritual and emotional release. So, as a Reiki master, a lot of the times when I'm dealing with certain levels of grief or just healing trauma in general, you can go back to the past, you can heal the present, and then you can prepare yourself for the future using Reiki. Sending Reiki to the future to encourage yourself in certain situations is something that you can do. Um, and then spiritual rituals. So, creating a memorial is helpful. Engaging in a personal or cultural ritual around closure is a physical way to honor the loss. So, you can light a candle, some people plant trees. They create a special place, or adding your child to the altar is another way, venerating that child that you have lost. And then other people may go through letting go ceremonies. So you can write a letter, bury it, and burn it. This may provide a sense of release or closure. Um, I know people release the balloons, but that's not generally good for the environment. But you can also do the letter as a way to release and bury it. Um, Engaging in other spiritual practices or rituals from your traditions, such as prayer, meditation, or doing a working, can help facilitate emotional and spiritual release. So, um, one when I did my doula training, one thing we were taught was a closing of the bones ceremony. And that is something that you can do, um, whether your mother who had a successful pregnancy, or someone who experienced loss. That is a practice that's rooted in various cultures, indigenous and African and Latina influence. The ceremony is performed after a significant life tradition, so such as childbirth, abortion, or the loss of a child. It focuses on physical and emotional healing. It also serves as a rite of passage to honor the woman's journey and experience. The folk the focus is on the womb area, recognizing its significance in a woman's emotional and spiritual health. So the ceremony takes place in a sacred or special, comfortable space. Sometimes she's alone, or it's a ceremony that can be done with supportive friends and families or other community members. The goal is to just create a safe space and promote connection. So you can add things like candles, herbs, soft music, or sound healing to enhance the experience. Body work is also done during this ceremony, and the doula, or the one performing this ceremony, will apply gentle touch, rub oils on the lower abdomen, and then wrap the woman head to toe in a rebozo, which is the cloth, or some other form of cloth. Um, and the wrapping provides a sense of grounding and physical closure. So this symbolically brings the body back into alignment and balances after transition experience. So this can also include Reiki or other energy work to aid in the release of stored grief and trauma in the space. Um, this ceremony is about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the doula practitioner performing it. But it's just a time to allow the woman to feel acknowledged, to feel validated and supported. And it provides a safe place for release, empowerment, transformation, and spiritual healing. So if you never experienced this, there's no time frame on getting it done. Just if you Google closing of the bone ceremony, you can find a doula in your area. They typically offer it. If you're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, I'm available to offer this ceremony for you. Um, Other spiritual healing methods include doll magic, candle magic, or lamp magic. I love using doll magic, or sympathetic magic in some way. So, gourds or melons are an excellent vessel to work with and symbolize your womb. Mambo has a class that she taught on using gourds and healings for womb healing. Um, gourds and melons are connected to our sacral chakra, the divine feminine, and motherhood. So, given the season, pumpkins are an excellent choice. Pumpkins are associated with water, and water, as we know, holds memory. It provides healing, cleansing, and renewing. So, pumpkins can also aid in boosting your mood, abundance, rebirth, and renewal. Fertility, protection, and passion can grow. So the orange is also associated with the sacral chakra. Orange is associated with joy and optimism, confidence, emotional identity, and vitality. So pumpkins are an excellent way to not only promote release, but also to um, aid you in moving forward. Um, Pumpkins can also be carved. So you can add sigils to strengthen the intention of your work. You can carve in if you named your child, or carve in whatever you need to carve into the pumpkin to further solidify the intention set for the working. If you're using a pumpkin as an effigy for your womb, you can either use an oil like olive oil, which is neutral, or grapeseed oil, which really helps with emotional healing, and massage the outside of the pumpkin. And this will symbolize you kind of massaging or coaxing your womb to release some of those emotional pains. It's a way to promote self nurturing, to provide you comfort and encourage that emotional release. And then you can use herbs like rose, basil, marigold, or thyme, lavender as well, to aid with the easing or recovering from the grief that you're experiencing. So if you were using the pumpkin also as a lamp, you could, put those herbs inside, write your petition, burn it inside. However, you see fit to use the pumpkin as a way, but that's an excellent vessel to help you with releasing grief, even identifying grief held in the womb, and then moving forward and encouraging you. Um, that is about all. We have Sacred Awakening starting in a few weeks. So I really encourage you guys to join the WhatsApp group, learn more about the classes that we're teaching in Sacred Awakening. But Sacred Awakening was a way that me and Mambo, a workshop we crafted to help with healing the womb, with womb healing, and to um, validate women in their experiences, to identify what emotions are stored and trapped there, what traumas are trapped there. We have that coming back around starting November 3rd. And I really encourage you guys to check that out.
Thank you so much. The information I told you it was going to be great. The information you shared was absolutely amazing. I've been reading the comments as you've been going along, and it's really touched a lot of people and given them an understanding of, ways that they can help and support themselves, areas of, their healing that they may not have paid attention to or suppressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
We do have a couple of questions. The first one is, what are ways to prepare to try again and not carry the fear of another loss? until the pregnancy. So I believe this was from somebody who, survived miscarriage and wants to continue their journey towards motherhood. So they're trying to figure out what are some ways that they can prepare themselves to continue the journey without being stagnated by fear.
Yeah. So one of the first steps is to help with releasing a lot of that grief that you're still retaining from the previous miscarriage or the previous loss. Once you have dealt with the grief, um, at the same time, you may deal with the fear or whatever situation is holding what other than the loss itself. If there's other things that you're holding on to for fear of trying again, that would be the first step. Then the second step is to um, understand your body's needs. How can you support yourself in trying again um, physically? So, seeing a doctor to see if that miscarriage was due to any type of medical things going on, or if it was, you know, suppressed trauma in your womb that, like, if it's not a medical reason, right? Then seeing somebody who does energy work or somebody who or even doing a divination for yourself to see if there's any trauma stored in that womb that makes it not uh that makes that space not so conducive to bringing forth a child. And then that will encourage you to make sure, like, if you're feeling those thoughts of, oh, it's me, it's my body, then understanding what your body is going through will help you counteract some of those thought processes. um, and then of course there's working with people who do fertility work on helping you. And while you are if you become pregnant and you're afraid during that first 12 weeks, again, understanding your body, um, praying, meditating, all of those things to release the fear, working with a fertility doula um, can also help and support you and encourage you as well. um, yeah, I think those are some
Yeah.
ways.
If I may add on to that before I
Yeah.
read the next question, one of the things we discuss in Sacred Awakening is that your womb is connected to the feminine spiritual energy of your ancestors as well, right? So you have your individual womb that's tied to the collective womb of your female ancestors. So I would encourage you, if you are feeling fear and doubt, tap into those women in your bloodline and have conversation with them, right? Especially if you are dealing with any kind of health issues that may be understood as hereditary. There's a likelihood that in the thousands of ancestors that you have, there are a few women that may have experienced something similar to what you're going through. So being able to tap into them, have conversation with them, get encouragement from them, right, is also something that's going to help you tremendously. Um, Next question. What is the best way to go about releasing um, blockages or spirit from your womb? And this comes from someone who was told by a spiritual healer that they do have a spirit attached to their womb.
Um, so I feel like there's different ways you can go about this. One that comes to mind is any type of cord cutting. I feel I did a cord cutting for somebody, and I found that there are a lot of cords attached to a lot of different areas to their womb specifically. Being able to remove that from the womb, or if it's a specific ritual around releasing spirits from the womb, if there's, whether it be like a malevolent spirit, then working with a spiritual practitioner to identify that spirit,
Mhm.
and then giving you a prescription on how to rid that spirit from you would be good.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Definitely checking in with yourself, doing your divination, speaking to your ancestors, absolutely. But at certain points, we do a lot of work, most spiritualists, to meet people where they are and, do work remotely. But sometimes it just gets to a point where you're going to have to make a visit and see a practitioner, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you are in a Dallas-Fort Worth area, Hunsi Ferdowsi can help you. In addition to being a doula and a therapist. She is also a Reiki healer, right? I offer in-person healing sessions, and that's actually something that I specifically focus on with my female clients is removing blockages from their womb space. I won't be doing any for the rest of the calendar year. It won't be starting those back up until January. So if you want immediate assistance, trying to find someone in your direct area that you trust. And unfortunately, if there's no one in your direct area, you may have to plan a visit to visit someone that you trust. Sound healing does help. Sound healing helps tremendously. In fact, at our retreat that we had back in June, we had a really brilliant sound healer there, and she was able to do different types of healing over the body. She had bowls and tools that I'd never seen before. So if you, find somebody who's a very experienced sound healer, you want to make sure that your sound healer believes in holistic medicine, because a lot of sound healers, people do spiritual stuff for different reasons, right? So you want to make sure that you're dealing with a sound healer that understands the science and the energetics behind it. But that is definitely one way to help you. But when you know that there is something attached to your womb, if you've already done your baths, done your meditations, tried a whole bunch of methods on your own, and you're not seeing improvement, it's going to be necessary for you to go ahead and take the step to tag someone in for physical in-person support. All right, we have 2 more questions. This next one, what does it look like when a repressed emotion is released? How will I know that I've released an emotion? So I guess this person wants to know like what it looks like when the work is working. If they've done the steps, what does it look like when the emotion has been released?
Yeah, so a lot of that may be like what were you experiencing, what were your symptoms before? And have those alleviated or started to feel less. You may also physically feel a lightness in your womb. If you're somebody who knows how to do a body scan, and you're able to sit with your body, and identify anything that may be abnormal, then doing regular body scans again you can figure out for yourself. A divination can help too, but a lot of that is the alleviation of a lot of the symptoms that you are experiencing from holding on to that grief. If that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. I would say the main thing that you can use to tell whether or not a blocked emotion has been released is how do you feel it in your body, right? If this was something that was draining you, so one of the things Ferdowsi talked about earlier is dealing with depressive symptoms, not being able to sleep well, chronic exhaustion, chronic fatigue, cloudy thoughts, right? So if you do some sort of spiritual healing and you notice those things start to dissipate, that means you more than likely have released the emotion. So I think what she offered us and what's really important for us to continue to consider is that most of the time these emotions or these energies have physical symptoms in the body. So one of the easiest way to tell that you've released a blocked emotion is, am I seeing any relief around these symptoms, right? These physical symptoms, right? I share the story about with you guys all the time about how I was dealing with chronic migraines in the workplace before I started working for myself full time, right? And then once I started doing my own spiritual healing, the migraines went away. right? So I'm not going to bore you guys with the details of what the things were that needed to be released. We can talk about that in a different class. But it's important to understand how these things show up as physical symptoms in the body, so that once those symptoms go away, you'll be able to deduce like what was released, what was moved.
And then also, what are you feeling when you think about that situation again? Are you experiencing a lot of heavy grief again, crying spells, depressed moods, etc.? Are you able to think about that again with more clarity, with a sense of closure, or um, you're feeling okay, right? Like, so when I think about this child I lost, it's more so like it wasn't time. I've had two other children since, and I'm able to let myself know that it just wasn't the right time. It's okay. I moved on from it. It's not something that I need to hold on to um, as an area of pain any longer, because um, I'm okay. That child's okay. It's someone I still venerate and connect to, right?
So we have two more questions. The final two questions are medical in nature. So we'll be ginger with those just because, we don't really offer medical advice. But the first one is, does medical intervention interfere with spiritual blockages? If a blockage is, I'm going to have to scroll up because I definitely mistyped that when I was. Hold on a second. My apologies for that. If a blockage is ancestral, is it not recommended to proceed medically?
It's always recommended to proceed medically. You always, even I'm also a certified women's wellness coach, so you always want to work with your medical professionals first. Everything else is complementary, so we're supporting you and aiding you to reach your medical goals, but we're not medical professionals. So now, if you find out that there's no medical reason for your symptoms, then of course you can, because the doctors have deemed it not a medical problem, you can work with another practitioner to aid you. But you always want to make sure that you stay working with your doctors and making those medical decisions between yourself and your doctor. So, for example, my family experienced fibroids. I would still go, even if that's a generational um, trauma that our family experiences fibroids. I would still work with my doctor on healing that, but also if it's an emotional, spiritual, genetic, generational trauma reason, then I know that I can aid my doctor with healing my fibroids by doing my other work. And that's what holistic wellness is all about, is putting all of these pieces together to heal yourself holistic as a whole, not just one part or the other.
Absolutely. We've gone through a lot as African people, as African Americans, as melanated people living in the US when it comes to the medical industrial complex and experimentations on our bodies, all these things, right? And so I understand sometimes the hesitancy to want to engage with the medical industrial complex, but we also have to consider that because there was that history of denial for proper medical attention built into slavery and built into Jim Crow and built into right? That sometimes the way that we help alleviate the ancestral wound is to take advantage of healthcare that we may not have had previously, right? So just, in the example that Firdausi just gave, right? Fibroids being something that is a part of her lineage, that probably started at a time where women in her family were not able to access medical care, and that only exacerbated this, right? So I think it's really important to understand that technology is a blessing. That's why in so many ATRs, there are literally gods of technology, right? Ogu blesses technology in Vodou, right? And medical interventions are a form of technology. And so sometimes we have to be willing to take advantage of the technologies that are available to us because our ancestors did not have access to them, right? So I think, like Ferdowsi said, seeing this as a holistic approach is really, really important. And if you are ever concerned that's what the necessity. I knew it was gonna happen. I knew I was gonna talk too fast. That's why divination is important, right? So if you are concerned or you think you're doing something wrong, stop and talk to your spirits. But I do think, it is important to make sure that you're in conversation with a medical team, with your doctors, to make sure that you are taken care of as best as possible.
And vet your doctors.
Pardon me?
Vet your doctors.
Vet your doctors, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ask them questions and don't be afraid of getting a second opinion. As a mother of a special needs child, I've seen a lot of doctors. I've switched a lot of doctors just because I need the doctor who's going to provide the best care for my son, right? So I ask questions. I have other doctors who have told me things, and when I go to that specialty and they're dismissive, I seek out someone else. So don't be afraid of, talking to them, interviewing them, because they work for you. So interview them on what their medical model is, as they would say, and find the best doctor for you.
Yeah, always get second opinions because you want to make sure that you're being taken care of. I'm not going to talk about this in detail, but and Ferdowsi knows about this. I had a scare earlier this year that rocked me to the core, and I spent about a good 6 months thinking something was really, really wrong. And it wasn't until I got a new doctor and started working with a new team that they were like, "We're sorry that this happened to you. Your last doctor was fucking quack. They didn't even have the right test." So it can be scary, but you want to be really, really diligent. The same way that you would vet friends, the same way you would vet a job. Give yourself permission to do the same thing with your doctors. Yes, these are people that have gone to school for a really long time and they're highly educated, but people are people and they sometimes have their biases, right? So you want to make sure that you are getting support that's going to help you. Final question. Is PCOS considered an effect of repressed emotions trauma?
It can be. It definitely can be. But again, you want to work with your doctor on that. Work with, in conjunction with that, a holistic wellness practitioner if you want to try to heal yourself holistically, and then work with a spiritual practitioner to aid in healing any spiritual reasons that there may be.
Yes, and she's right. It can be either one of them. And that's why it's really important to have a holistic approach to your health and wellness. Also, if you have been recently diagnosed with PCOS, be patient with yourself because the needs around your PCOS may be different than other people's, right? And so it's really important to be patient with yourself along the journey of finding out what your needs are. I am someone who literally was only recently diagnosed with PCOS. I was walking around for years not knowing what's going on with my body, and I was only this year diagnosed with it. And so being able to make the adjustments has been somewhat of a learning curve for me. But I think PCOS, similarly to fibroids, similarly to several other womb health conditions, can be either or. They can just be something that happens genetically due to whatever's going on with your body and your DNA. And some of them can be a response to trauma built up over time. But I think that either way, having a holistic approach to dealing with it is going to be really, really helpful and necessary. Also, PCOS is very complicated, right? People talk a lot about the fertility issues of PCOS, but there's also a side of it where, from what I'm understanding in the conversations I'm having with my doctors, you can oscillate between having fertility issues and being hyperfertile, depending on what's going on with your body at different times. So make sure that you're getting as much information about it as you can, and that you're being patient with yourself as you're understanding it. Okay? All right, Ferdasi, I'm going to go ahead and let you say a few final words just to wrap us up and close us out.
Well, thank you guys for joining us. I'm very excited to have you all here. If you are wanting to know more about the services I offer, you can go to my website, theexceptionalyou.com. And if you were interested in any in the Sacred Awakening, you can join that WhatsApp group to learn more about what we will be teaching this round. And I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.
Thank you all so much for joining us this Sunday afternoon to learn about the divine feminine and our wombs and what we can do to heal and protect them. This is one of my favorite topics, so I'm really grateful that you joined us. I personally will be back here at 7:15 for the weekly energy reading. You guys it's been a while since you guys have heard me on here not cussing at y'all get back together, but that will change at 7:15. So if you want to circle back for that reading, I will be here at that time. And until then, I want you all to take care of yourselves, okay? Have a great night.